bringing your awareness entirely into the present moment. Abiding within the now. Experiencing and embodying the present moment only. The focusing of attention entirely into this single present moment. Recognizing and understanding deeply, not just as a concept, but actually experiencing that there is no future. There's no such thing. There is no next moment. By the time this thing that we call the future arrives, it's still now. This thing called the future only really exists in our mind as imagination, as worrying, planning, fantasizing. But this is all just content of the mind. And all of this content of the mind arises within now. There is no past. Not in the way that we imagine it. Previous events have been and gone, and now can only exist in the mind as memory. But memory also arises within the now. The evidence of and the effects of previous events may still be felt within the present moment, but the fact remains they are experienced within the present moment. Now, this practice of bringing the attention entirely into the now is very powerful. If through various methods or practices you can focus your awareness, your attention, your consciousness entirely into this present moment, the mind has to fall silent. It quietens, 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 then falls silent and dissolves. Because the mind requires the concept of time in order to exist. Once you have seen clearly and experienced the true reality that time was simply a concept, a thought and an idea, a potentially useful concept. It is the way that we navigate through the world, the way we organize ourselves, but it remains a concept nonetheless. And the true experience of life is that it is only ever the present moment. You can only ever experience reality now. So through this powerful practice, deepening the understanding, finally, so many of these negative states of mind, emotions and feelings just begin to lessen in severity and eventually dissolve and fall away. Because how can anxiety exist if there is no future? If there is no future to worry about, the worry simply has to subside. And how can guilt, shame, even anger exist if there is no past to be guilty, to be ashamed of, to be angry about? So what a relief. What a relief all this time. Oh, it's only ever now. Now this is a very powerful meditation, and it's a very simple as well as powerful pointing that every spiritual practice and discipline speaks of. Even the sciences that are engaged in helping people to overcome their negative states of mind speak of presence and bringing yourself into the here and now, so that you're not lost in streams of thought, rumination, anxiety. So the sciences speak of staying present, the spiritual practices speak of staying present, and even religions speak of staying present. Give no thought for the morrow. Watch the lilies of the field, they neither toil nor do they spin. Yet I say unto you, not even Solomon in all his splendor is arrayed like one of these. Meaning that nature does not worry about the future, nor does it ruminate on the past. And yet there is nothing more beautiful, more wonderful, and yes, even more practical than nature. The lilies of the field neither toil nor do they spin, and yet not even Solomon in all his splendor is arrayed like one of these. Now, because the concept of presence is so ubiquitous, is so widespread, so simple and so powerful, it is one of the first concepts. It's not a concept. It's one of the first pointings. It's one of the first teachings that we come across when we begin our journey of introspection, when we begin our spiritual journey. Whatever that path is for you, it could be just the path of healing, or it could be the path of awakening, spiritual awakening, or it could be more in the scientific and medical route, just the process of coming to understand the mind, to change the fundamental way that we've been perceiving reality, so that we might find more inner peace, so that we might find more inner space, so that we don't feel so anxious, so worried, so guilty, so low, so negative. So because this practice, this principle, this teaching is so ubiquitous, it's one of the first things that we come across. And it is extraordinarily powerful. Extraordinarily powerful. There are many people who heal spontaneously. No journey, no path, nothing. They just hear about the concept of presence for the first time and I got it. It happens, and it happens all the time. There are people who awaken spiritually in very rapid and powerful ways from a single pointing. All it took was for somebody to point out, just to be clear, it's only ever now. Oh, yeah, I forgot that. We all understood it as children. It was so simple. But over time we got lost in the mind-constructed concept of time. Now, because it's one of the first things that we hear about, and as I say, some people just awaken immediately, spontaneous and permanently, just from that one pointing. But for most of us, it's a bit of a process. There's a journey involved. There's an unfolding, an unpacking of the ego, an unpacking of the identity structures underneath the perception of reality. So it takes, it appears to take some time, but there is no such thing. So we begin this practice of whether we do a meditation or whatever practice or discipline you do, and a large part of it is to abide within presence. The relief is enormous. The relaxation in the body and mind is profound, powerful, and has lasting impact. It has profound impact throughout your entire life. Your thoughts are so much calmer. You feel a lot freer, a lot lighter. You are becoming liberated, and your whole life circumstances begin to reflect this. Everything just begins to simplify. Where life was a tight knot, it just begins to untangle. But the mind is very sneaky, very tricky. The mind is subtle and devious and ancient. And it receives a powerful blow when this concept of presence is truly understood. Because presence, I called it a concept again. You see how tricky the mind is? It's not a concept, it's reality. When the pointing and teaching of presence is truly embodied, truly experienced, it is not a function of the mind, it is a function of being. It is a function of consciousness. It is a function of reality. The mind suddenly doesn't have a job anymore. The mind got fired. Alan sugared. The mind has been sacked, laid off. Because presence is now embodied, experienced. It's only ever now. The mind is going, yeah, but what about the future? There's no such thing. And the mind's saying, yes, but what about all that stuff in the past? There's no such thing. It's done. It's over. It's over. Job done. Go home. Let's all go home, right? The job's done. But the mind will take its back seat for a while, but it may wait. And I believe this is why, for some of us, there's this powerful shift that happens in the beginning of our spiritual journey, the beginning of our healing process, this huge shift of relief. Whoa, it's only ever now. Oh, life can be wonderful. Life can be filled with joy. Life can be free and happy. And so we experience these long periods of bliss, maybe true awakenings. That's it. How amazing. This powerful opening as the ego structures Everything we were worried about, suffering from, turned out to be an illusion. So we have this long honeymoon period in which we feel the juice of awakening, the beauty, the bliss, the peace, the increased energy, the bodily health, the mental health. And then over time, the mind starts to creep in again, sneaks in through the back door. Clever, subtle and sneaky. And what the mind can do is it takes your experienced embodying of presence and it begins to constrict it into a concept, into a framework, into a new structure and method for understanding the world. But this is mind activity. And the mind wishes to construct a new ego. It understands it was fired from its previous job, and now it's setting about trying to construct a new job for itself. And so constructs a secondary ego in which this concept of presence is a fundamental cognitive principle by which we're going to now live our lives. Now this is better than the previous way. This is a better way of living your life. Absolutely, a much healthier way. So there's no harm really in a short period of this until you realise what's happening. And you go, dang, happened again. Another ego is springing up, sometimes called a spiritual ego. I don't like the term, but if the shoe fits. This happened to me as well, absolutely. I'm not saying I'm above any of this. I'm probably still there. But the concept, the mind creates a concept of presence. Creates the concept. And it now tries to take reality and form a new theory of reality. But it's not necessary. Reality is done for you. Existence is done for you. The universe is already here. You don't really have to construct a theory of the universe in order for the universe to exist. It just is. You just are. It just is. It's just an unfolding activity of consciousness. We don't need theories or concepts in order for reality to do its thing. And you are reality. You are the universe. And you too are unfolding, and you are an activity of consciousness, and you don't need a theory or a concept or a methodology of understanding anything. Not really. It just is. The universe just is. Life just is. It's all a happening. A wonderful, beautiful, perfectly balanced equation unfolding. And the mind doesn't need to be a part of this. But the mind doesn't like that idea. The mind wants to jump in, construct a new ego identity out of this thing called presence. So, back to basics. Every day is a very powerful way of ensuring that you are truly embodying, experiencing the teaching, to feel the benefits, the juice of the awakening, the understanding, the full thing. If you really want to embody it, you really want it to happen for you, you want to be done with the petty narratives of the mind, you want to be done with the old structures, the old way you were living your life, you want to be done with it. So many people on the path are frustrated thought I was done with this. Why is this coming back up again? Why are these old patterns resurfacing? Why am I not progressing on the spiritual path? Why am I not awake yet? Why am I not enlightened yet? Many people are frustrated and stressed by it. And the mind loves this. Great, yeah, frustrated, stress. It can feed off of that. The ego loves this, but that's what we're trying to get away from. So, back to basics every day. Back to presence. Go back to where you started and never left. Back to the first shift. Right back to presence. Simple thing. And discard even everything that happened after you found that initial presence. Because so many spiritual concepts, new ideas, new teachings came in, which is all wonderful, it's all good, it's all, there's power in all of it. But understand how subtle and sneaky the mind can be in taking all of these things and constructing a new model, constructing a new ego out of it all. So fully back to basics, back to presence, abide within presence and drop all of the concepts, all of the thoughts, all of the feelings, all of the images relating to the path. Even all of the stress and frustration that you felt along the way, it can all go. Back to simple, pure presence. Embodied, open, empty and expansive. Just now. No future, no past. Just now. And all is well. What is the problem now? In this moment. Don't go to mind. No interpretations or analysis, no images, just what is now. What's the problem? Oh, there isn't one. And mind will go, yes, but what about? No, there's no but what about now. It's just, what's the problem now? There isn't one. Ah, well then you're at peace. Oh yeah. Ha. And now stay as that. Because that's what you are anyway. You already are within the present moment, whether you like it or not, whether your mind has things to say about it or not, whether you keep getting lost in the future or lost in the past or not, it doesn't matter. It's only ever now anyway, regardless of what we think, feel or believe. Experientially, it's so obvious, it's only ever now. So simple, just let everything go and it is what it is. It's just now. The mind can exist now in this shadow space over to the side. So you're fully there in the presence, because what's needed to truly solidify, to make permanent this true abidance within presence, is a recognition of the implications of presence. There's no such thing as time. Sit with that for a while. There is just no such thing. The implications of this. Not a single second has ever passed. Not one. There has never been a single second that ever passed. No minutes, no hours, no days, no weeks, no months, no years. None of it. No amount of time ever passed. Ever. Not one single second ever passed. Because there's no such thing as a second. It's a measurement, a unit of measurement that the mind created. But it's an illusion. It's a concept, and it doesn't actually exist. Not in reality. It exists in the mind, but the mind is an illusion. The mind is a magician. It constructs many illusions, some more convincing than others, but one that we've become firmly convinced about is this concept of time. Yes, there's seconds, minutes, months, days, yes, there's all of this time, and the universe has been going on for a very long time, and it will go on for a very long time, and it's vast, and there's lots of it. That is an illusion of the mind. There has never been a single second. The universe is not old. The mind measures things, compartmentalizes and divides things up. That's how the mind operates. And so, because the mind is a time-bound activity, a time-bound entity, it has divided up its apparent experience as time and likes to chop it up nice and fine, seconds, minutes, days. There's no such thing. An illusory concept of the mind can be let go, and the implication of this needs to be experienced. Feel it. Don't just think about it, because that just creates another concept. Don't mull on it. Don't interpret it with, that's not important. We need to experience the implication. Not 1 second ever passed. Ever. Not 1 second will ever pass. Ever. Never. No, it won't ever happen. Never. It can't happen. You are 0 years old. You are no years old. But my body has been going on for this amount of time, has it not? Apparently so. That's how it appears. But in reality, do you feel that old? Do you feel the number that is attached to your body in the form of years? Do you feel old? Just feel the same way I've always felt. It's just now. It's just here and now. The body and mind in the apparent world seems to age. It will grow old and one day will be gone. But consciousness doesn't age. Because consciousness is not time-bound. And consciousness is not tied and bound to the limitations of the body-mind. That is an illusion. A very convincing illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. Consciousness does not arise within the brain and the body. Consciousness is everywhere as infinity. You are 0 years old. You will never age a single second. Implications, experienced and felt. You are 0 years old and will not age. You are not born and so cannot die. The universe is not old because it never began. Everything always is. And the universe will not be destroyed at some time. Because there is no time. There is only now. Not 1 second, not 1 minute, not 1 hour, not 1 day, none of it. The mind interprets reality and represents it to you. And you are consciousness, and the mind appeals to consciousness with this idea. I've come up with a model for interpreting things, but as consciousness, you have the option to say, not buying it. I'm done with all of that. We're bored of that game now. That game didn't work, so we're going to leave it. The mind creates interpretations and representations in the same way that a menu, reading a menu, represents the options of the meal. But you can't eat the menu. But that's what a lot of us try and do when we live our lives. We're trying to eat the menu, and we're missing out on the meal. You don't need any concepts in order to enjoy reality. You don't need any concepts to understand reality. In fact, the fewer concepts you have, the more you understand the way things truly are. And the insights that you receive whilst abiding purely in presence bypass the mind entirely and just become a fundamental understanding that percolates through your entire being. You just understand. It just makes sense. It won't make sense to the mind because the mind is actively trying to misunderstand a lot of these pointings, a lot of these teachings. Why does it do that? Because it knows that its job is at risk. That's it. Nothing more sinister than that. That's it. It just wants to keep its job. And this manifests in an infinite number of very troublesome ways. So don't allow the mind to take hold of presence, turn it into a concept, and then kind of take credit for it. The mind likes to do that and goes, yes, I've understood that now. I have understood this thing about presence. I get it. I really get it. That's what the mind then does, and then very sneakily holds on to that. And you can be going around living your life believing that you are, yes, I'm in presence because I've understood the concept of presence, but that's not presence. Being in presence is abiding and experiencing the implications of now. Again, I'm not putting myself above any of this because this happens to me. I hold on to that concept of presence and walk around trying to apply it to life. Like it's just another thing I've understood and now create an ego around it. Back to basics every day, every morning. Just check in with that. Am I abiding in presence? Am I experiencing presence? It's not just an understanding, it's not just a way of thinking or perceiving, it's am I fully here and now? How will you know if you are fully here and now? Oh, you'll know. You'll know. There is such a lightness and freedom, a liberation from even the deepest and darkest depths of your suffering mind. And believe me, I used to suffer so very, very greatly. So to find liberation from that, well, there can be no doubt after that. Free and free. You'll know it. And it won't be fragile. This can be a very frustrating part of the path. You feel like I've got a glimpse of presence for a moment, but now I've lost it again. If that is happening, just check and make sure that the presence that you're experiencing isn't just a mind-constructed imagination of what it thinks presence might be like. Because that can happen. It goes, ah yes, here's what presence could be like. And you experience, oh yeah, awesome. And then, oh yeah, but what about this? What about that? What about work? What about my kids? What about dinner? What about my goals? What about my job? What about my career? What about my aspirations? What about all that horrible stuff in the past? What about this? What about that? Blah, 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 blah. And we go back and forth, because presence was only understood as a concept. But in the embodying and the experiencing of that full present moment, all of that disappears. There's no more back and forth in the mind. Yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? Yeah, but... It's gone. Gone. When does infinity begin? We're used to hearing about, like, in the next life, it will be eternal. There's an eternal life after this one. What? How can eternity begin at some point in the future? Eternity, by its own definition, is ever-present, constant, forever. So eternity cannot begin in the future. Infinity can't begin in the future. And by the definition of these things, they could not have started either. Infinity is now. It won't start. You're not just going to suddenly become awakened one day and then infinity begins. Your new infinite life begins. Your infinite life is happening now. The only difference is you haven't yet transcended the limits of a time-bound mind. That's the only thing standing between you and an infinite life of bliss. I mean it. I really do. The only thing standing between you and an infinite life of bliss is a fragile, flimsy, tiny, molecule-thin veil. That is the time-bound mind. That's what that veil is. But we have become so fixated on the pretty colours on the veil is even transparent. It's transparent. But we've become so fixated on the patterns in this molecule-thin veil, we're spellbound. See through the veil. The time-bound mind, because this pretty veil very quickly becomes a horrifying image. We're stuck looking at it, and because we're stuck looking at it, we're blinded to the true depth of joy, the true depth of peace. The veil can only be in the way if we fixate on it and believe in it too much. But it's possible to see straight on through it. And the veil is constructed of the time-bound mind, the concept-bound mind. If we just leave the mind for a bit, just don't engage with any of that, and realizing that reality can be experienced without the mind, without interpretation, without analysis. By turning the attention away from that veil, now we are freed, liberated, and able to go and enjoy reality as it actually is. Embodying the implications of presence. Not 1 second passed, ever, and never will. Infinity did not begin, and it will not begin at some point in future. It can't by its own definition. It's happening now. Infinity is now. Abiding fully within the space of presence, this becomes so obvious. And once it becomes obvious, it's no longer a fragile thing that you can get for a second and lose for a second and get for a second and lose for a second. It just won't work like that. Because reality already is. Back to basics. Back to the simplicity. True spiritual teaching is so simple. And it's simple by design. The moment we're trying to understand a complicated principle, we've lost the point. There are some more involved concepts that are kind of necessary, but they're only necessary to remove other concepts. It just has to kind of be that way. So there's no harm in more colourful spiritual teachings. They can be very enjoyable, and they can be very good at keeping your morale and your enthusiasm up. But don't get lost in them, would be my advice. But there's nothing wrong with them either. Yeah. All is well. You have an infinite amount of time to get this right, that's the other thing. Don't worry that you're going to run out of time. I must get this presence thing right before I run out of time. What? That doesn't make any sense. You're not going to run out of time. If you don't get it in this life, you might get it in the next one. It kind of works like that. But that's a topic for another time. So I think that's everything today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I feel immense gratitude to anyone on the path of healing, the path of awakening. Because when you heal and wake up, you're removing a huge part of the suffering from the world. You might feel like, oh yeah, but that's selfish, I should be focused on others. No. Remove your own suffering and you take out a large part of the darkness and the grind from the common stock. It works like that. So I feel an immense amount of gratitude for you, for persevering with this very rewarding, but at times very challenging path, the path of healing and awakening. So thank you, and thank you for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. I think that's everything today. So to recap, every morning that you wake up, back to basics, abide in presence, make sure that your whole being, your consciousness is abiding and experiencing presence, and ensure that you're not just waking up, picking up the concept of presence and analysing the concept of presence throughout the day. Don't engage with any of that. It's good news. It's totally simple. You can let it all go. And when you're in that simplicity, that open emptiness, all that is necessary is simply to relax and enjoy. And the deepest, most profound healing and awakening occurs within that deep, healthy bed of presence. The universe is with you. The universe is with you. You can't not get it. You can't not get it. Sooner or later you'll get it. It's an inevitability. As it said, if an infinite number of monkeys on an infinite number of typewriters were just tapping away, they would write the complete works of Shakespeare just by accident. And as the present moment is infinite, eventually all of our monkey minds are all going to wake up. And upon that awakening, there will be pure joy and peace across the whole world. It's coming. The universe is with us. That's everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm not even going to say it. Take care, be well, and stay present.